Hey, everybody. This is Theresa, your coach, your counselor, your mentor, and I'm sure by now your friends. Welcome to the Road to Resilience podcast. And today I have a very special guest who is joining us, and his name is Yardell Perkins from Perkitech. He is someone who is very inspirational to me. He's also very instrumental in all of my social media platforms and my web designs, anything social media and digital. Yardell's my go-to guru. So welcome, Yardell. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to assist you all along the way.
Well, we have quite a good relationship, an extensive relationship, and you've always provided great work for me, timely, efficient, and you're very patient because I can tend to be a little bit high maintenance when it comes to wanting everything like yesterday. And I am so glad that we've met. So tell our viewers or our listeners a little bit about your business and how it started.
Well, to keep a long story as short as possible, in my last life as a 9 to 5 workaday employee, I was a system administrator for a nonprofit in Montgomery County, and I I worked to get myself to that point, and I fought really long and hard studying and practicing and networking for about 18 months, and it was great. I was happy, I enjoyed it, but near the end, I was just feeling like it wasn't for me anymore. And an opportunity came where I was able to find the resources and the wherewithal to kind of strike out and build something of my own. So, my company was actually incorporated in 2015. I struck out on my own in the winter of 2017. And the first year, I was just kind of, again, networking to build my name and my brand and just better learn what I was going to eventually be doing for my clients.
And so I guess, like all of us, COVID hits, the national pandemic turns into a global pandemic. Um, we all found ourselves what I call the word pivoting, which nobody wants to hear anymore. I've pivoted so much that I absolutely despise the word and the connotations associated with that word. But we all had a pivot. So, what are some things that you had to do in order to reevaluate what you were going to do with your company?
What's an interesting thing about that? I mean, the work I do is remote, or I think the other term used is location independent,
Mhm.
which basically means I can do it from anywhere as long as I have like my laptop and a solid internet connection. I mean, I guess equipment wise, that is my business. Mostly I'm working from home most days, but if I can help it, I prefer to get to a co-working space or at least a coffee shop to more so put myself in that mindset of working. Kind of similar to I could technically work out from home, but I prefer to go more so to the gym to put myself in that mindset. So when COVID hit, I had pretty much gotten a good start on my ways in my work and my business, building clients and clientele and whatnot. And I think prior to like really building my business, I had a colleague who was a graphic designer who turned out to be something of a mentor for me. One of the things he always told me was that in the first few years of being freelancer, small biz, there are these periods you go through. They're called feast and famine. The feast being you have so many clients and work coming in, you almost have to consider turning away jobs and people, but not that you ever want to do that. Then there's the famine periods where it's almost like for all the work and clients you're getting, you might as well not have a business because it seems like you don't exist. When we were on the edge of COVID, I was starting to see that that was going to be my first famine period. And my colleague basically said, listen, you're going to have that first famine period. you shouldn't try to induce it, but you shouldn't try to dodge it either, because it's going to force you to really sit down, like batten down the hatches, if you will, and like figure out, okay, what you really did right, what you did wrong, and like just find the plot holes and the loopholes in your workflow that you couldn't see before. So it was interesting where when I saw that it was like this storm on the horizon, and I knew I couldn't avoid it. I was scared, but I was kind of excited because, like, well, okay, the famine period's here, and I started doing all that, and it was scary and it was rough. And yet, there's this one period that it was this one story that I like to tell people. It's kind of funny in the aftermath where I was scrambling, I was behind on a bunch of bills. I did a job for a client, and he was happy, he was excited. He said, "Hey, Yardell, I have the last bit of your money that I owe you. How can I send it to you?" And I remember somehow I either knew where he was at or he told me, and I knew he was right across the street from, I think it was a Pico office. I said, "Listen, if you could do me a big favor, here's my account number at Pico. If you could just run it over there and give it to them, because I'm going to send it there anyway." And he kind of like got me caught up on my electric bill.
Wow. That is a funny story. Boy, way to pivot. Way to be resilient.
Right.
Wow, I love that story. So yeah, that's actually a good story. And this is a podcast about resilience. So you may all be wondering, what does this have to do with, web design and graphics and digital platforms? Because when COVID hit, I was in the process of, first of all, I've been in the field of mental health and wellness for almost 2 decades. I've been teaching resiliency skills before resiliency was a buzzword. And because of what I had learned through, my mistakes and failures and my um, setbacks, challenges, and adversities in life and relationships and business. So I became like the resiliency guru for many of my clients and patients in the field of mental health, in my private practice, in my counseling agency. And when COVID hit, I was already preparing to pivot, not knowing COVID was coming. I was pivoting straight into just educating, coaching, and consulting. So I was pivoting and COVID hit, and I had to reevaluate what I was doing, where I was going, what was I going to do. And that's why this podcast today is so important, because for those of you who are still in the process of reevaluating your company, your business, one thing I want to tell you in the topic of resilience is you have to update all of your social media. You have to get a website up and running, because for me, networking completely stopped. Networking was my bread and butter. I'm a people person. I'm a networker. I am the queen of networking. I can teach a class and a course on networking. And those kinds of opportunities dried up. So you have to update, just like you have to update your wardrobe each season, depending on your age, the season of the year. You have to update your wardrobe. You always have to be updating. And one thing I learned during COVID is to update all of your social media platforms, all of your digital platforms, and anything that has to do with getting you out there. So that's one thing that I think is really important. So Yardell, can you just kind of speak to that for a minute, about why you feel, I'm guessing you're busier now than ever, because I know for me, I don't like doing it. I know how, I don't like it. It's not my strength. So can you tell the viewers why it's important to update and upgrade all of their social media and digital needs?
Absolutely. The short answer to that question is because it essentially allows you to network and build and push your brand forward from the privacy and comfort of your own home or any other location nearby you can get to, if you can't move around the way you're used to being able to doing. In fact, that's kind of what happened at the start of COVID. Like I created my business to be location independent and to not need to necessarily depend on a external office or external place, whatnot. So yeah, when the quarantines hit, it was kind of like, yeah, business was starting to like go down because I was wondering like, okay, what am I going to do? And are people going to find me? But I was still like pushing my blogs and my posts and all the rest of that out there. A lot of people who were used to just kind of like getting traffic, foot traffic, word of mouth. Then people come in and buy into their goods and services and then tell other people about it. They were in dire straits, same as I was, but it was more so because they had actual locations. And it was this, oh my goodness, we used to rely on word of mouth and people just coming in and finding us on the street. And what are we going to do? Because people can't come off the street anymore. The streets have been shut down. And then it was, hey, wait a second. What if we just start like talking about what we do online and maybe adjust our service so that we can just deliver to people or just send information like that? And oh, we need some social media. We need a website. Hey, that guy over there, he does social media. He builds websites. Somebody find him, like bring him in. So it was kind of like this, for me, it was this arrow. It got pulled back a bit and then just shot forward.
Yeah. So that's a great case in point. A lot of businesses did dry up and suffered terribly, and other businesses exploded, because when you can provide a need and you can alleviate a pain point in someone's life or business or relationship or company, you become the go-to person. So, two more questions. In my research, as COVID was pounding us and people were losing their businesses and losing customers and clients and opportunities, some of us almost losing our mind, I did a little research, and research had proven that most people only have 14 days of cash flow available. And I'm very grateful because I'm a saver and I'm a pincher. And so I tend to watch my pennies, so to speak. So I was very grateful. I was okay. I'm still okay. I've been okay. My business ebbed and flowed because no longer were people asking coaches to come in or trainers or educators to come in. I teach at a local university that went completely online. I had to learn how to do all of that. And I found that I was very blessed and I was okay. And then my business started picking up, back to therapy. More people are now approaching me for therapy, counseling sessions, and for their children who are experiencing significant anxiety and depression and stress. So I found that most people didn't have enough money stored away to get them through the tough times. So point number 2, save your pennies, use your money cautiously, and hang on, because we're gonna get through this, but you have to learn how to budget your money. And that's what I was going to ask you next. Yardell, what would you say to somebody who would say, oh my gosh, I can't afford a whole new website, and I can't afford to update all of my social media, and I can't afford to hire somebody and pay somebody? What would you say to that?
My response to that would be, well, in these times, you almost can't afford not to. Now, as far as like the manner in which I do my work, when people think website, they think it's just this sprawling, like 10 plus pages, and it needs to have all these bells and whistles and hooks and gadgets on it, which there are some freelancers and studios that can do very well. But for a lot of my clients, I have 3 packages that I offer, but 9 times out of 10, I tell them, look, let's build you a simple landing page, which will be just basically who you are, what you do. If possible, you have some testimonials of people you did it for, and how someone can reach out to you to talk to you about how you can do what you do for them. And then you connect that to some very simple a set of social media platforms so that even after you get the website built, it's not just this billboard in a sea of billboards that no one knows how to really find their way to. So they can like generate traffic flow to their website so people can actually find them and search them and all the rest of it.
And you know what? It's so funny you should say that, because when I heard podcasting, which I heard podcasts several years ago, I mean, everybody knows what a podcast is, but it was, to me, I thought, oh my gosh, I got to buy all this equipment. I got to buy these big microphones, these big headphones. I got to get a studio. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And thankfully for you, we don't need all that. So I've been telling people who are afraid of a podcast, we are podcasting. I'm in my home office. I have this pretty background that's through Zoom, and you are providing me with an opportunity to put this on my podcast space that you've designed and created for me. And it isn't that scary now that you distilled it down for me. So I do want to encourage people, reach out to Yardell, even if you just want to do a little podcast. It is extremely easy to do. Well, it's not my forte, but for Yardell, you can get this going. I just had a conversation with somebody 2 days ago who was really just playing around with doing a podcast, but was very overwhelmed, saying, oh my gosh, you have a podcast, you have this, you have that, you do this, you do that. And do I have to get all this equipment? And I'm like, no, I'm sitting in front of my computer in my office at home, and I hit the record button or this button, and I'm just talking naturally into my little tiny $20 camera that I got off of Amazon that's sitting on my screen. So people, please reach out to Yardell if you want to start a podcast. It is not as scary as some professional podcasters may lead you to believe. And it is not as expensive as some webmasters and designers might lead you to believe. So that's my little 2-cent piece of advice and my plug for you, Yardell. Now, because we're talking about resilience, and many of you know my story. I was a young widow. I was broken, alone. I was a single mother, and, had pretty much nothing, and learned how to navigate. And many, many years later, here I am. And listen, it took me, I think it took me probably 9 years to get my higher educational degree. Because I was working, single mother, I was trying to find my way. And so, everything you see here today has been 20 years or more in the making. So for those of you just starting out, hang in there. Or for those of you feeling like your time is ending and everything is upside down and you're not going to come out of it, you will. I promise. That's resilience. My definition of resilience is having the mental toughness to go through challenging times. So that's what resilience is all about. So Yardell, as we wrap up, can you just tell us a little bit about a lesson you learned in resilience and how it's benefited you in moving forward on your way to success?
All along the way, there are two, I guess, like sea-related analogies that I've held to that keep me like grounded in place and push me forward. Starting out, it was something along the lines of, look, a ship is safe in port, but that's not what ships are built for.
I love that.
So that kind of got me his mindset of, look, make your preparations, make sure all your stuff is together and all your affairs are in order as far as setting out for this business on my own. But at some point, it's just, you gotta like set your ship out to sea and sail and just trust that all the preparations you made, knowing that you can't prepare for everything, will just allow you to kind of like mitigate what you run into along the way. And the second analogy that I kind of live by now is smooth seas never made the skilled sailor. Now, again, that's not to say that you always want to be traveling through drama and trouble and problems. But on the other side of that coin, if you're in a business or if you're in a situation where you just absolutely have no problems, there's something wrong. It's either you're not taking enough risks, you're not putting yourself out there, or you're maybe playing things a bit too safe.
That's great advice. So listen, I think that for those of us who are going through it, which most of us are, and there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. But that's why I'm so passionate about this podcast, because I truly believe that the power of resilience is something that we all possess. And one of my podcasts is nature versus nurture. Are we born resilient? Do we learn it? Is it something somebody teaches us?
As far as the nature versus nurture, for me, as far as getting into entrepreneurship, I had to learn or be taught how to be resilient. I mean, I was resilient enough for the space I was in before, as far as doing work, finding jobs and interviews and working for other people and navigating corporate America, nonprofits, and just being an employee. That does translate into being freelance and small business, but then it kind of doesn't. There's a lot of things that you don't know unless someone who's been there can show it to you. So in that respect, yeah, resilience can be very much a nurture thing where someone has to show you, look, this is how, or at least in my case, look, clearly you have the thick enough skin. You just need to figure out how to leverage it, because leveraging it to operate on your own is very different from leveraging it to operate in a business and a team for someone else. So it's very much something you can learn and be taught if you don't have it, or if you're not sure that you have it. For me, it's like, again, I didn't know I had it, but I didn't know if I had it. Someone had to show me, look, yes, you have it. It's here. This is how you use it.
Absolutely. I do agree with that. 1,000%. And that's also another story about how we are trained and what we download into our mental DNA by the time we're 2 or 3 or 4. Those early influencers in our lives have an effect on us way into our adult lives. And it is how we learn to view money, religion, relationships, business, health, career. So great point. Great point, Yardell.
So if you're an individual, if you think you don't have resilience, that's fine. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't have it or you'll never have it. I just want to stress that point before we close out.
And for anyone that would like to get in touch with Yardell, what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you, Yardell?
My direct line, you can call or text me, is 215-325-0403. You can look me up on any of the major social media sites under just Perkitech. That's PERKITECH. And that's also my direct website, was perkitech.com.
So I truly believe that one person who taps into that power of resilience is more powerful than 500 who have not. Let me repeat that. One person that can tap into that inner resilience, that power of resilience, is more powerful than 500 who have not. So don't give up, everybody. We got this. We're all going to get through this. We can, we must. And if you would like to be a guest on this podcast, please reach out to me. I would love to have you if you have a remarkable story of resilience, or if you want to share with our listeners something that you have learned on your journey to success and how you made it through. I would love to have you on this podcast, because we all have a story to tell, and we may not be able to change everybody, but if we can change the life of one person, I think we've done our job well. And I always say, let's leave the world a better place than when we got here. Thanks, everybody.